I pulled into the driveway of my house in Phoenix at 4 in the afternoon, 3 days earlier than planned. The Montana fishing trip had been cut short when my buddy Frank came down with pneumonia, and honestly, I was glad to be home. 10 days away from Carol was longer than I liked these days. We'd been married 43 years, and even a week apart felt wrong. But something was immediately off. There was a moving truck parked in front of my house. A big one. The kind you rent when you're relocating everything you own. I sat in my truck for a moment, trying to make sense of it. Carol hadn't mentioned anything about expecting a delivery. We weren't getting new furniture. We weren't having work done on the house. Then I saw two men carrying our couch out the front door. Our couch. The one Carol had picked out 15 years ago, the one she'd reupholstered just last year because she loved it so much. I got out of the truck fast, my knees protesting. 67 years old, retired from the Phoenix Police Department for 5 years now, but I could still move when I needed to. I crossed the lawn in long strides. The movers saw me coming and stopped. One of them, a young guy with tattoos up both arms, looked nervous. "What the hell is going on here?" I said. "Why are you taking my furniture?" "We're just doing our job, sir," the tattooed guy said. "We got a work order. Mrs. Morrison hired us." Mrs. Morrison? That was my wife. But Carol wouldn't hire movers without telling me. Where is she? Inside, I think. With the daughter. The daughter. Jessica. My stomach dropped. I walked past them into my house. The living room was in chaos. Boxes everywhere. Our wedding photos were already packed. Carol's collection of pottery was wrapped in newspaper. The bookshelf, where I kept my detective novels, was half empty. I heard voices from the kitchen. I walked toward them, my heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with the sprint from my truck. Carol was sitting at the kitchen table. She looked small, confused. Her hands were folded in front of her, and she was staring at a stack of papers like she couldn't quite make sense of them. My daughter Jessica stood next to her, one hand on Carol's shoulder. Jessica was 43 now, looked more like her mother every year. Same auburn hair, same sharp cheekbones. But Carol's face had always been kind. Jessica's had edges. Next to Jessica stood her husband, Kyle. Kyle Bennett. Financial advisor, or so he called himself. I'd never liked him. Slick smile, expensive suits, always had an angle. "What's going on?" I said. Jessica jumped. Kyle turned, and I saw calculation flash across his face before he arranged it into something like surprise. "Dad," Jessica said, "you're home early." 3 days early, I said. "Frank got sick. Now answer my question. What the hell is happening to my house?" Carol looked up at me, and something in her expression made my chest tighten. She looked relieved to see me, but also scared, like a child who'd been caught doing something wrong but wasn't sure what. "Thomas," she said quietly, "you're home." "Yeah, honey, I'm home." I crossed to her, knelt beside her chair, took her hand. It was cold. "What's going on?" "We were just helping Mom make some decisions," Jessica said. Her voice had that careful, patient tone she used when she was trying to manage a situation. I'd heard it 1,000 times growing up. Important decisions about the future. "What decisions?" Kyle stepped forward, that smile in place. "Tom, maybe we should all sit down and talk about this like adults." "I am sitting down," I said. I wasn't. I stood up. "And don't call me Tom. Now explain why there are movers taking my furniture out of my house." Jessica Sihil. "Dad, we've been trying to have this conversation with you for months, but you won't listen." "What conversation?" "About Mom. About her condition." I looked at Carol. She was staring at the table now, her face flushed with what looked like shame. "What condition?" I said. "Dad, Mom has dementia. Early-stage Alzheimer's. She was diagnosed 6 months ago." The words hit me like a punch. I looked at Carol. "Is this true?" She didn't look at me. "I didn't want to worry you," she whispered. 6 months. She'd known for 6 months and hadn't told me. I felt Jessica's hand on my arm. "This is exactly why we need to talk about this. Mom can't make good decisions anymore. She's not safe here alone when you're off on your fishing trips." "She's not alone. I'm here." "Not always," Kyle said. "And with all due respect, Tom, You're 67 years old yourself. Carol needs professional care. Professional care? She needs her husband. She needs her home. Which is why we found a wonderful facility, Jessica said. She picked up a brochure from the kitchen counter, held it out to me. Desert Vista Senior Living. It's beautiful, Dad. Carol will have her own apartment, 24-hour nursing staff, activities, everything she needs. I took the brochure, looked at it, a glossy pamphlet with stock photos of smiling elderly people playing cards, doing yoga, the kind of place that charged $6,000 a month and served mystery meat for dinner. Carol doesn't need a facility. She needs to be here. Dad, we've already made the arrangements, Jessica said. Her patience was wearing thin now. I could hear it in her voice. Mom has signed the papers. We have power of attorney. Those words stopped me cold. What? Kyle held up a document. Your wife granted Jessica durable power of attorney last month. It's all legal. We had it done by a licensed attorney. I looked at Carol. You signed this? She nodded slowly. Jessica said it was important. In case something happened to me. Something happened to you? You have early-stage Alzheimer's. That doesn't mean you can't make decisions. Actually, legally, it does complicate things, Kyle said, which is why we moved quickly to establish guardianship. We're protecting Carol's interests. Her interests or yours? Jessica's face hardened. That's not fair, isn't it? Let me guess. You're selling the house. Silence. Jesus Christ, I said. You're selling our house. It's the only way to pay for the facility, Jessica said. Desert Vista is expensive, but it's the best care available. How much is the house worth? We've had it appraised, $890,000. And how much of that will actually go to Carol's care? Kyle's smile faltered. We're planning to set up a trust fund. How much? I said again. $200,000, Jessica said, for the first few years of care. And the rest? That's not relevant. The hell it isn't. Where does the other $690,000 go? Dad, Kyle and I have expenses. We've been handling Mom's care, managing her finances, dealing with all of this while you've been off fishing. I was gone for 10 days. You're always gone. Fishing trips, poker nights, volunteering at the community center. You don't see what I see. Mom can barely remember what day it is. Last week she put her car keys in the refrigerator. She called me 3 times in 1 hour, asking if I'd talk to Grandma. Dad, Grandma's been dead for 15 years. I looked at Carol. She was crying now, silent tears running down her face. I'm not senile, she whispered. I forget things sometimes. Sometimes? Jessica's voice cracked. Mom, you got lost driving to the grocery store last month. The grocery store you've been going to for 30 years. A neighbor had to bring you home. This was news to me. I looked at Carol. Why didn't you tell me? I was embarrassed, she said. Carol, we're supposed to tell each other everything. Like you told me about the chest pains you had last year, she shot back. The ones you hid from me until I found the prescription bottles? Fair point. I'd had some angina. Nothing serious, but I hadn't wanted to worry her. Now I understood why she'd kept her diagnosis quiet. We'd both been trying to protect each other. Okay, I said. Okay. So Carol has some memory issues. That doesn't mean you get to sell our house and pocket the money. We're not pocketing it, Kyle said. We're establishing financial compensation for our time and effort in managing. You're stealing from my wife. We have power of attorney. I don't care what papers Carol signed when she was confused. She's my wife. This is our house. You don't get to take it. Jessica's face flushed red. Dad, I am trying to help. I have been trying to help for months while you buried your head in the sand. Mom needs care that you can't provide. Then I'll get her care. Home health aides, whatever she needs. But she's staying here. It's too late, Kyle said. The sale is already in progress. We've accepted an offer. Closing is in 48 hours. 48 hours. They'd moved fast. Who'd you sell to? Kyle hesitated. An LLC. Local investor. What's the name of the LLC? Bennett Properties. I stared at him. Your LLC. You're buying our house. It's a legitimate business transaction. You're buying my house for $890,000, giving my wife $200,000 of her own money, and keeping the rest for yourself. That's fraud. It's elder care planning. It's theft. Jessica stepped between us. Dad, stop. Just stop. You're not thinking clearly. Mom needs help. We're providing it. Everything we're doing is legal. Did Carol understand what she was signing? She was competent when she signed. Was she? Or did you wait until I was gone, until she was confused and alone, and pressure her into signing away her life? That's not what happened. Then explain the timing. Explain why you waited until I left town. Jessica said nothing. I looked at Carol. Honey, did you want to move? Did you want to sell our house? Carol's hands were shaking. I don't know, Jessica said. She said it was for the best. She said I couldn't stay here anymore. She said I was a danger to myself. You're not a danger. You're just dealing with something we'll handle together. But what if I get worse? What if I forget who you are? Then I'll remind you. Every day. But we're not selling our house. We're not giving up our life. I turned to Jessica. Get out. Dad, get out of my house. Now. And take your husband with you. We have legal right to be here. No, you don't. Carol might have signed your papers, but I didn't. This house is in both our names. You want to force this through. You're going to need my signature too. And you're not getting it. Kyle pulled out his phone. We can call our attorney right now. Go ahead. Call him. While you're at it, I'll call mine. And then I'll call some friends at the department. I may be retired, but I still know people. People who take elder abuse very seriously. This isn't elder abuse, Jessica said. We're protecting Mom. You're exploiting her. There's a difference. The movers appeared in the doorway. Folks? We're kind of in the middle of a job here. You want us to keep loading? Or, stop loading, I said. Bring everything back inside. This move is canceled. We're contracted, one of them started. I'll pay you double your fee to put it all back. Cash. Right now. They looked at each other, shrugged, and started carrying the couch back inside. Kyle's face had gone red. You're making a mistake, Tom. Your wife needs care you can't provide. Eventually, the courts will see that. We'll get guardianship. We'll get out. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Dad, I'm your daughter. I'm trying to help. No, you're not. You're trying to help yourself. Now get out before I call the police. They left. I watched them drive away, Kyle's Mercedes kicking up dust as it peeled out of our driveway. Then I went back inside and sat down next to Carol. She was still crying. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I thought Jessica was helping. I know, honey. I know. I'm scared, Thomas. I'm so scared. What if I forget everything? What if I forget you? Then I'll make you remember. We'll make it work. But Jessica's right. I'm getting worse. Last week, I couldn't remember how to make coffee. I've been making coffee every morning for 40 years, and I couldn't remember. I stood in the kitchen for 20 minutes trying to figure it out. I held her hand. We'll deal with it, together. But we're not giving up our home, and we're not letting Jessica and Kyle steal from us. Do you think that's what they were doing? Stealing? Yeah, honey, I do. That evening, after the movers had put everything back and I'd paid them $3,000 in cash, I called my grandson David. He was 23, in his second year of law school at Arizona State. Smart kid, good heart. He'd always been closer to Carol and me than to his own parents. Grandpa, he said when he answered, you're back from Montana already? Yeah, came home early. Listen, I need your help with something. I told him everything. The moving truck, the power of attorney, the house sale, the LLC, all of it. When I finished, there was a long silence. Grandpa, David finally said, his voice tight with anger, that's elder abuse. That's financial exploitation. Mom can't do that. She already did. Or tried to. I stopped it, but I need to make sure she can't try again. Okay, let me think. I'm taking elder law this semester. We just covered this. First thing, you need to get Grandma evaluated by a doctor. An independent doctor, not anyone Mom or Kyle might have influenced. We need documentation of her actual cognitive state. She does have Alzheimer's, Early stage. That doesn't make her incompetent. Early stage dementia patients can still make decisions. But we need to prove she was coerced or confused when she signed those documents. How? Did she read them? Did anyone explain them to her? Was she alone with Mom and Kyle? Or were there witnesses? I don't know. I wasn't there. We'll find out. I'm coming over. Let me grab my notes from class. We're going to build a case. David arrived an hour later. He sat with Carol for a long time, asking gentle questions. When did Jessica first approach her about the power of attorney? What did she say? Did Carol understand what she was signing? Carol's answers were heartbreaking. Jessica had told her it was just a precaution. Kyle had used a lot of legal terms Carol didn't understand. They'd been kind, patient, but insistent. They'd made it seem like the responsible thing to do, the loving thing to do. They'd made Carol feel like refusing would be selfish, would be putting an unfair burden on Jessica. Classic manipulation, David said quietly when we stepped into the hallway. They exploited her cognitive vulnerability and her desire to not be a burden. That's textbook elder abuse. Can we prove it? Maybe. But here's the thing, Grandpa. Even if we can prove coercion, the fact is Grandma does have dementia. And Mom can argue, probably successfully, that she was acting in Grandma's best interests. A judge might side with her. So what do? We fight back. Hard. I'll file a complaint with Adult Protective Services tomorrow. They'll investigate. And we need to revoke that power of attorney immediately. Grandma can do that herself, as long as she's still competent to make that decision. Is she? David hesitated. Legally? Probably yes. She's aware of what's happening. She can communicate her wishes. She understands consequences. That's the standard. But Grandpa, we need to be realistic. This is going to get ugly. Mom's not going to back down. She'll fight this. Let her fight. Over the next week, things moved fast. David helped Carol revoke the power of attorney. We hired an attorney of our own, a woman named Patricia Alvarez, who specialized in elder law. She was tough, no nonsense, the kind of lawyer who made opposing counsel nervous. Patricia filed an emergency petition to prevent the house sale. She also filed a complaint with Adult Protective Services, alleging financial exploitation. Jessica hired her own attorney, a guy named Richard Chen, expensive suit, shark eyes. He filed a counter-petition, arguing that Carol was incompetent and needed a guardian. Guess who he proposed as guardian? Jessica. The legal battle turned into a nightmare. Carol had to undergo cognitive testing. I watched her struggle through memory tests, puzzle tests, question after question designed to reveal the gaps in her mind. It was humiliating for her. She cried afterward, said she felt like a specimen under a microscope. The doctor's report came back. Early stage Alzheimer's disease, confirmed. But, the doctor noted, Carol still retained decision-making capacity in most areas. She could understand complex information when it was explained clearly. She could appreciate consequences. She was not, in the doctor's opinion, incompetent. That should have been enough. But Jessica's lawyer argued that Carol's decision-making was impaired enough to justify guardianship. He brought up the incident with the car keys in the refrigerator. The time Carol got lost driving to the grocery store. He painted a picture of a woman in decline, a woman who couldn't be trusted to make sound decisions about her own welfare. Patricia argued back. She pointed out that early-stage dementia doesn't equal incompetence. She highlighted the suspicious timing of the power of attorney, obtained while I was out of town. She brought up the LLC, the sweetheart deal Kyle had arranged to buy our house for below market value. This isn't about protecting Mrs. Morrison, Patricia told the judge. This is about profiting from her vulnerability. The judge ordered an investigation, not just by Adult Protective Services, but by the Attorney General's office. Elder abuse, if proven, was a criminal matter. That's when things really fell apart for Jessica and Kyle. The investigation uncovered that this wasn't their first time. Kyle's LLC had purchased 3 other properties in the last 2 years, all from elderly clients of his financial advising business, all at below market prices. The pattern was the same. Gain the elderly person's trust, obtain power of attorney, convince them to sell their home, pocket most of the proceeds. Two of those elderly clients had since died. Their families had filed complaints, but nothing had come of it. Until now, the Attorney General charged Kyle with multiple counts of financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Jessica was charged as an accomplice. Fraud, theft, conspiracy. I watched the news coverage from my living room, Carol sitting next to me. Saw Kyle doing a perp walk in handcuffs. Saw Jessica, her face pale, her lawyer's hand on her arm as they walked into the courthouse. "She's our daughter," Carol said quietly. "She's our little girl." "I know. She used to be so sweet. Remember when she was 6, she made me that Mother's Day card with all the glitter? She told me I was the best mommy in the world. I remember. What happened to her?" I didn't have an answer. Maybe Kyle had corrupted her. Maybe she'd always had this in her, this capacity for selfishness, and we just hadn't seen it. Maybe the pressures of her own life, her own financial struggles, had pushed her into making terrible choices. Or maybe she genuinely believed she was helping. Maybe she'd convinced herself that taking our house was the right thing to do, that we couldn't take care of ourselves anymore. Maybe she'd rationalized it as tough love. I didn't know, and in some ways, it didn't matter. What mattered was that she'd tried to exploit her own mother, and that I'd stopped her. The trial happened 6 months later. I sat in the courtroom every day, Carol beside me. We watched as prosecutors laid out the case. Financial records showing Kyle's LLC purchases. Testimony from other victims' families. Expert witnesses explaining how Kyle had systematically exploited vulnerable elderly clients. Jessica's lawyer tried to argue that she'd been manipulated by Kyle, that she hadn't fully understood what they were doing. But the prosecution had emails, text messages, conversations where Jessica and Kyle discussed their plans, discussed how much money they'd make, discussed how to handle Carol's concerns. In one text message, Kyle had written, "Your dad's going to be a problem when he finds out." Jessica had written back, "Let me handle my father. He'll come around eventually. He always does." She hadn't counted on me not coming around, on me fighting back. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they came back, they found Kyle guilty on all counts. Jessica guilty on conspiracy and fraud charges, but not on the more serious exploitation charges. The jury, apparently, had bought the argument that she'd been under Kyle's influence. Kyle got 10 years. Jessica got 4, with possibility of parole after 2. I watched her face when the sentence was read. Saw her break down. Saw her look at Carol, as if hoping for, what? Forgiveness? Understanding? Carol was crying. I held her hand. The day Jessica was taken into custody, Carol had a bad day. She kept asking where Jessica was, why she wasn't visiting. I'd explained the situation a dozen times, but she kept forgetting. Eventually, I stopped explaining. Just told her Jessica was busy. I became Carol's full-time caregiver. It wasn't easy. Some days were better than others. On good days, Carol was herself. We'd watch old movies, work in the garden, cook dinner together. She'd tell me stories from our early years, remember things I'd forgotten. On bad days, she was confused. She'd forget where she was. She'd ask for her mother, who'd been dead for 20 years. She'd look at me with fear in her eyes, not recognizing me, asking who I was and what I was doing in her house. Those were the hardest days. The days when the woman I'd loved for 43 years didn't know who I was. But I'd promised her we'd face this together. So I did. David helped. He came over 3 times a week, sometimes more. He'd sit with Carol, talk to her, help me with the things I couldn't do alone. He'd applied for guardianship, and the court had granted it to me, with David as backup guardian. If something happened to me, David would make sure Carol was taken care of. He'd changed since all of this started. He'd switched his focus in law school from corporate law to elder law. Said he wanted to help families like ours. Wanted to protect vulnerable people from predators like his own mother. Jessica wrote letters from prison. Long letters, apologizing, explaining, begging for forgiveness. I read them, didn't respond. Carol read them too, on her good days. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she wanted to write back. I never stopped her, but I never helped either. 2 years into Jessica's sentence, She became eligible for parole. She asked us to write letters of support to the parole board. David refused. Carol couldn't. Her condition had progressed to the point where she could barely write her own name. I thought about it for a long time. Thought about the daughter who'd made Mother's Day cards, covered in glitter. Thought about the woman who'd tried to steal everything we had. In the end, I didn't write the letter. Some choices define us. Jessica had made hers. 4 years after that day, I came home early from Montana. Carol's condition had progressed significantly. She was still at home, still with me, but she needed round-the-clock care now. I'd hired home health aides, people who came in shifts to help me. It was expensive, but I'd taken out a reverse mortgage on the house. The house Jessica had tried to steal was now paying for Carol's care. There was some irony in that. Carol didn't remember Jessica anymore. She remembered David. She remembered me, most days. She remembered our wedding, our honeymoon, the house we'd bought when I made detective. She remembered 40 years of our life together. But she didn't remember the last 5 years. Didn't remember the betrayal, the trial, the heartbreak. In some ways, I was grateful for that. She didn't have to carry that pain. I carried it for both of us. David graduated from law school and passed the bar. He joined a firm that specialized in elder law. On the side, he started a nonprofit called Morrison's Watch, named after Carol. It provided free legal services to elderly people who were being financially exploited by family members. He helped dozens of families in the first year alone, stopped countless scams, protected vulnerable people who couldn't protect themselves. "Grandma would be proud of you," I told him. "She's the reason I'm doing it," he said. "She and you. You showed me what it means to stand up for someone, even when it's hard, even when it's your own daughter you're standing up against." Jessica was released from prison after 3 years. She called me once. I didn't answer. She left a message, said she was sorry, said she understood if I never wanted to see her again, said she hoped someday I could forgive her. I deleted the message. Maybe that makes me a bad father. Maybe a better man would have found room in his heart for forgiveness. But I'd watched Carol struggle with dementia for 4 years. I'd watched her cry on the days when she couldn't remember our children's names. I'd watched her panic when she didn't recognize our own home. And I remembered that Jessica had been willing to take all of that away from her. Not to protect her, to profit from her. Some choices define us. That choice defined Jessica. And my choice not to forgive her defined me. I was okay with that. One evening, David brought his girlfriend over for dinner. Her name was Sarah. She was a social worker. They'd met at a conference on elder abuse prevention. They were good together. I could see it in the way they looked at each other, the way they finished each other's sentences. After dinner, while Sarah was helping Carol with a puzzle in the living room, David and I stood on the back porch. The Arizona sunset was painting the sky orange and purple. "I'm going to ask her to marry me," David said. "Good. She's a keeper." "I think so too." He paused. "Grandpa, I need to tell you something." "What?" "Mom's been trying to contact me. Letters, emails, phone calls. She wants to meet, says she's changed, she's gotten help, she wants to make amends." "What did you tell her?" "Nothing yet. I wanted to talk to you first." He looked at me. "I'm not going to lie. Part of me wants to hear her out. She's still my mother. But another part of me remembers what she did to you and Grandma. And I don't know if I can forgive that. You don't have to decide right now. What would you do?" I thought about it. "I'd do what feels right to you. Not to me, not to Carol, not to Jessica. To you. You're the one who has to live with your choice." "Do you think people can change?" "Some people can. Some people can't. I don't know which one Jessica is. If you had to guess, I watched the sun sink below the horizon. I think she's sorry she got caught. I think she's sorry about the consequences, but I don't think she's sorry about what she did. Not really, because if she was truly sorry, she would have stopped trying to justify it. She'd have accepted full responsibility. And in all those letters she wrote, she never once did that. It was always someone else's fault, Kyle's fault, the pressure, the circumstances. Never just, I was wrong. I hurt my mother. I tried to steal from my family. I'm sorry." David nodded slowly. Yeah, that's what I thought too. But that's my read. You might read it differently. You're allowed to. I don't want to betray you and Grandma. You wouldn't be. Talking to your mother isn't betrayal. Forgiving her isn't betrayal. You get to have your own relationship with her, separate from ours. But you won't forgive her. No, I won't, but I'm not you. He stood there for a while, thinking. Finally, he said, I'll think about it. I'm not ready to see her yet. Maybe I never will be, but I'll think about it. That's all anyone can ask. Inside, Carol laughed at something Sarah said. It was a good sound. On her bad days, she barely made any sound at all. But tonight was a good night. She knew who everyone was. She was present, engaged, herself. Those nights were getting rarer. I knew that. I knew where this was going. Knew that eventually, Carol would slip away entirely, lost in the fog of her own mind. Knew that someday, I'd be taking care of someone who didn't remember me at all. But tonight, she remembered. Tonight, she was Carol, my Carol. And I was grateful for it. David and Sarah left around 9. I helped Carol get ready for bed, walked her through the routine she couldn't quite remember on her own anymore. Teeth brushed, pills taken, nightgown on. She sat on the edge of our bed, looking around the room like she was seeing it for the first time. This is our room, she said. Yes, it's our room. We've been here a long time. 40 years. We bought this house when I made detective. I remember that. She smiled. You were so proud. You came home with a bottle of champagne. I did. We drank the whole thing. And then we made love on the living room floor because we were too drunk to make it to the bedroom. I laughed. I'd forgotten that part. I never forgot. She looked at me, her eyes clear for once. Thomas, I'm glad we didn't leave. I'm glad we stayed. Me too, honey. Jessica wanted us to leave. She wanted to take our house. I know. But we didn't let her. Good. She lay back on the bed. I can't remember everything anymore, but I remember this. I remember you. I remember us. That's enough. I lay down next to her, held her hand. That's more than enough. She fell asleep a few minutes later. I stayed awake, listening to her breathe, thinking about the last 4 years, the betrayal, the fight, the choices we'd all made. Some choices define us. Jessica had chosen profit over family. I'd chosen protection over forgiveness. David had chosen justice over blood. And Carol, in her clearest moments, had chosen to trust me, to let me fight for us. We'd lost our daughter in the process. That pain would never fully heal. But we'd kept our home, our life, our dignity. In the end, that had to be enough. Because some things, once taken, can never be returned. And some betrayals can never be forgiven. But love, real love, the kind that survives 43 years of marriage and 4 years of dementia and a daughter's ultimate betrayal, that endures. That defines us more than anything else ever could. I closed my eyes and held my wife's hand and tried not to think about tomorrow. Tried to just be here, now, in this moment, in our home, together, where we belonged.